We will now move on to the Industrialization of Education Part 2, where we'll talk about what schools and learning should be or could be. From the Industrialization of Education Part 1, you learned about how education was formed throughout the Industrial Revolution. But actually, did you know there was more than one Industrial Revolution? There's actually 4 with a potential 5th on the horizon. The one referenced in the video that you watched was the age of mechanical production, where we had the steam power and the railroads, and it also talked about the age of science and mass production, where we had the work lines and the car factories and that type of thing. But did you realize that there was a digital revolution from the 1950s through about the 2010s, where we had computers that actually were these big, huge machines that have now evolved into basically our telephones, and what global impact that had. So now we're actually in what's known as the 4th Industrial Revolution, or 4IR. I call it the bio-cyber-techno-fusion era, but that's just my term for it. But we have AI, which is artificial intelligence, robotics, what they call the Internet of Things. 3D printing is now a reality, genetic engineering, virtual reality, and it's really a me-first generation. So what does that mean for education? We're actually sort of in the middle of it right now during the pandemic. Most of our education is being delivered online, virtually. So the concept of a virtual classroom, a virtual teacher or device will become a trend in many schools. I'd like to think that we'll still have the human element there and not just a machine, but there are a lot of programs that are online in a virtual classroom, and there's not much human contact. When we were in the digital age, the 3rd revolution, the role of the teacher shifted from a mere point of view to managing behavior and emotions of the student, the mentor of learning, to become a citizen of balanced development. That's a lot of words. What that basically means is when we were in the classroom, and sometimes in college as well, but we had to manage the social behavior and emotion of the students. Our students had issues and problems, perhaps some learning disabilities, problems at home, and we basically had to, as well as educate them about reading, writing, arithmetic, we had to teach them how to belong and be emotionally well, have social behavior that's acceptable in public, and to learn how to be a citizen and to be able to balance everything so that they could move forward. Now, in the 4th Industrial Revolution, 4IR, teachers will need to take into account the needs of each student in a heterogeneous classroom. So creating a student-centered learning environment that enhances creativity, curiosity, and learning motivation. So what that means is we need, as teachers, to create lessons that are student-centered, that speak to your type of learning environment as a student, that promotes creativity, that has you asking why, and actually motivates you to learn more. So student learning in 4IR will be more of where the instructor is facilitating your education, your learning. So it used to be that the teacher stands up in front of the classroom. We refer to this as the sage, the wise one on the stage, where we stand there and we throw information at you, that spoon feeding, if you will, and you suck it all in and you write it all down and you memorize it. That's not how it works anymore. You, the student, are responsible for your own individual learning. The teacher is not responsible for your learning. We're there to help you, we're there to facilitate, we're there to give you guidelines, to give you resources, but we're the guide on the side now. So you as a student need to be equipped with innovative capabilities, lifelong learning, and access to digital technology. And that can be difficult at some times, which is why I'm really glad that Hartnell provides laptops and hotspots, has been doing that during this pandemic time. And you also need to realize that learning is lifelong, especially in the healthcare field with new technologies that emerge continuously. We're always learning new things, and we have to think critically and think on our feet and be able to problem solve. So the attributes that a student needs now need to be creative. You need to be able to work collaboratively with other people, many different people, some like you, some not like you. You need to be able to communicate how you feel, what you think, be able to diffuse difficult situations. You need to be able to critically think, to look at a problem, assess what's going on, come up with some solutions, try, see if it works. If not, try something else. If it works, move on to the next thing, and realize that there is continuous learning. We'll teach you things, and then it may change in a year or two, or as in with COVID, it changes daily sometimes. Then there's always the question, will there be a fifth industrial revolution? So there most certainly will be, sooner than later. It seems to me, when looking at the time frames of the industrial revolutions, that the time between them is also getting shorter as we improve our technology. So one of the things that looking ahead is that because it was digital and technological in the third and fourth, we really need to look at becoming more humanistic during this fifth industrial revolution to bring back the person, the individual. So it does need to be to flower like a new Renaissance age, an age of rebirth, and it will have creativity and will have common purpose. But we have to, in moving forward and progressing, we have to have purpose, and we have to include everybody. We have to be more people-oriented than machine-oriented in order to be successful and move forward. There are beacons of hope for the fifth industrial revolution. This picture here shows you for, excuse me, for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals that the United Nations has to transform our world. So some of the hope that we have is that technology and innovation, the best practices that we have now, are being bent back towards humanity. So we will serve humanity and to be champions and masters of the fifth revolution. Business has got to be connected to a purpose. It shouldn't solely be for monetary purposes. There's got to be some purpose, some service that a business is providing. The United Nations also has the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which is what the picture is of. And so we can look at those and know that, climate and food, poverty, wanting to end those things, having, housing and being able to farm on land, and think back to or look ahead to Maslow's pyramid. Right? You start with physiological needs. You have to meet the physiological needs and the safety needs and love and belonging in order to grow as a person. And then the other thing that is a beacon of hope is that we want to be able to lift all others, not just ourselves or people in our country. The Sustainable Developmental Goal number 5 is actually about empowering women and girls worldwide, gender equality. Is that particular topic. And so we want to lift others and recognize them and empower them so that they, which would promote the humanistic side. And these movements need to grow globally. So this needs to be something that everybody around the world is doing. I would caution you that just because the United States or the United Kingdom, some other Canada, Australia, industrialized countries are in the fourth or fifth industrial revolution, there are still countries, areas in the world that are still in their, probably not their first, maybe their first, but second or third industrial revolution. We are not all on the same wavelength, the same level. So we would hope that we would be able to, again, lift others and movements so that these food, shelter, clothing, those things are provided so that everybody's sort of on an even playing field. So becoming the master of your learning. You need to be the master as the student, the master of your learning. The academy course that you're in right now teaches you how to identify the styles of your instructors as well as your peers and as well as yourself. So once you can understand what learning style you have, then you understand how you learn best. You can help other people teach you, because you can say, I'm a visual learner, I need to see everything, or I'm an auditory learner, I need to listen, I need to hear everything. I have an execute personality, which means I just want to get everything done. I want to check the box and move on. Well, if you have everybody in a group that's working in with an execute style, there's not going to be much creativity, not going to be much excitement about it. Everybody's just going to put their head down and want to get everything done and check the boxes. So if you can understand that of each other, as well as your instructors and people that you meet, that can also help you to maximize your learning environment for your learning success, because you are doing the learning. We are facilitating your learning. And what's in a grading? So many of you are probably used to earning A's in high school, and many of you even in college. Some of you have degrees, some of you have master's degrees, and are used to earning A's. An A means that you have mastered the content. If you earn a B, that means you can understand it and can apply it. If you earn a C, you grasp the concept and the idea behind it. So in thinking about becoming a healthcare professional, understand that if you are functioning and earning C's, that's the level of your understanding and ability to apply the concepts. That could be difficult. However, you're probably not all going to master the material right away. So understanding and applying it is what we're asking of you at this level. You are going to become novice practitioners. And then as you practice, as you have more patience, as you go in whichever field you're going into the different facilities, then you will be able to master the concepts and master the care of your patients. So another way of looking at how we think about education, how we learn and remember things and teach things as well, is something known as Bloom's taxonomy. Many of you are probably familiar with this. The picture of the pyramid on the left-hand side of the screen shows the taxonomy model from 1956. It shows more of a noun form. Knowledge. You have knowledge of something, you comprehend it, you can apply it, you analyze. It's synthesized, and then you evaluate. But it was discovered and changed in 2001 to more of a doing, an action form, a verb form. I remember something. Now I understand it and I can apply it. I can analyze what's going on with the situation and evaluate. And once I've done those things, I can create something new. I can have new ideas. I can have curiosity, and I can create, which is absolutely amazing. And there are different verbs and words that go along with that. So in other words, if you are remembering something, you're going to define it or name it or recall it. If you are actually understanding something, you're going to compare and contrast or explain or demonstrate. Once you apply something, you might apply, you might experiment with, you might develop. And then once you analyze, you might categorize. Again, you might compare and contrast. You can examine, you can infer something, you can make a relationship. And then in evaluating, seeing how things, the quality of the work, how things worked, you can interpret, you can recommend something, you can deduce, conclude. And then finally, when you are creating something, you create, you combine, you compile, you predict, you look at how something could potentially happen. And so oftentimes we as instructors will use those types of verbs as we try to help you to walk from remembering up the pyramid through to being able to create something and a new understanding on your own. This quote is by William Butler So we're not just filling an empty void with information. We're not spoon feeding you. There's a lighting of a fire. You think of fire crackling and burning and moving and growing as well. And that's what education should be. So the Did You Know video runs, I believe, approximately 6 minutes. So when you're running this PowerPoint, go ahead and click on the video to view it. It is an updated version up to 2019 that gives you statistics about how things were perhaps in the 1990s or 2000s and what they are now, how we've grown in technology, for example. There's another quote by Alan Toffler, who says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I really like this one because I think it speaks to healthcare a lot, because we learn, and then we have to sort of unlearn what we've learned and then relearn in a better, more evidence-based practice way. So, for example, when we used to you'll hear the term spike and prime for an IV solution. The solution used to come in glass bottles, and the tubing used to be very different than what it is now. And so there's a whole different process of how to do that. Think about different types of surgeries. Think about in respiratory care, when you have tracheostomies, the trach has evolved to be very efficient. The suction catheters are different now. They actually have sleeves over them to protect from infection, which is absolutely amazing. So we learn a basic thing, we have an understanding, we move on, and sometimes we have to unlearn and relearn. If we can't do that, if we stay stuck where we are, then we won't be successful. So there you have it. That's where education should be, could be nowadays. So go ahead, take a break, and then come back and watch the third PowerPoint on brief histories of education in nursing and respiratory care. Thank you.